Hey, everybody.
Thanks for tuning in to the Hanging On to Hope podcast.
I'm Brenda J.
And I'm Karen Wonder.
And we are HangingOnToHope.org.
This podcast is intended as educational and is not psychological or medical advice. Always consult a professional when needed, and we disclaim any liability in connection with the instruction, information, or advice given. Well, hi, everyone. On today's podcast, we have Dawn Hopkins. She was my yoga teacher trainer and is the founder and president of Inspiritus Yoga, Holistic Wellness and Training Centers, an international yoga school and wellness service provider. She is also co-author of Lemonade Stand 2, From Sour to Sweet, a book of inspirational stories from women. It's a great book. So welcome to the podcast, Dawn.
Thank you so much for inviting me onto your show. I'm really excited to be here.
Yes, we're so glad for you to be here.
Yes, we are. Continuing with part 2 with Dawn Hopkins.
And remember that when we've gone through trauma, we disconnect, right? We disconnect from various parts of our help us to reconnect in our wholeness, which God designed us to be whole, right? And then so much more. So that, it will counter the effects of stress and trauma on the body.
Yeah. And I love it. Like you say it a lot. And I know this teacher that I was listening to, the TMJ, when she'd always say, relax your jaw. And I'm like, thank you. Cause I needed that. I needed it because every time I go to stretch, it'd be like, I didn't even realize I was doing it. So I need to be reminded that like every minute almost.
Oh, that was a really, what you just talked about was fascinating to me.
Yeah. I want to read more about that. I know you got into that with the Soaz, and
I love it.
It's hard to understand, but I really want to learn that more because it's fascinating.
Oh, I just hadn't heard anyone talk about that yet because I just love that. Now everything makes more sense to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a great book called Polyvagal Theory in Therapy by Deb Dana. Dana, that talks about all of this.
Okay.
So, yeah.
I get that. Yeah, that's fascinating.
Well, here are just some of the benefits of yoga on the body. Internal organs are massaged, nerves are toned, respiration, energy and vitality are restored, the mind relaxes and anxieties are released. Self-acceptance is encouraged, the body is purified from the inside. Any other benefits you can share that will encourage our listeners to give yoga a try?
Oh, wow. Too many to recount here. Do you have like 2 days? Literally, yoga helps every single system of the body. So if you think in terms of the musculoskeletal system, the nervous system, the digestive system, our immune response, everything can be improved through the practice of yoga. I would say that the most important benefit is stress reduction. 75 to 90% of all visits to medical practitioners are due to stress-related ailments and complaints. And stress is considered to be the number one cause of death in America.
Yeah.
And this was pre-COVID, you guys. So these stats are,
I was talking about that with someone yesterday, that just the disease isn't like every time I'm talking to someone has something else wrong. And I said, I think it's stress related. It's exactly what I said. And you just said that. So that's really interesting.
Yeah. Well, so the physical benefits, the mental, emotional benefits, and the spiritual benefits are still being researched all the time. And yoga is now a form of therapy that's being used to treat a variety of different conditions. So it's pretty profound how yoga is able to help the body heal in so many different ways. One of the most profound benefits for me has also been the connection back to my true self, to know that who I really am and whose I am, and that my trauma doesn't define me. That I went through these painful situations and circumstances, and I've, navigated illness and I've navigated abuse and all of these things, but that doesn't define me. And to know that and let go of the shame associated with that, to connect back to my creator, to see myself through his eyes is probably the most profound spiritual benefit that I've ever experienced and literally changed my life.
I think it's so important, I should say, that it is Christian yoga and that your experience, you were filled with the Holy Spirit, because a lot of healing with trauma is a spiritual experience that's almost unexplainable. And just giving over everything to God. Like people say, well, I don't know how to give that stress to God. It's not something we understand. When we give it to him, he takes it, and then our body feels free. And experience that with yoga is, you got the body and the spiritual and mind experience. So it all makes sense, but it is so much better when you add God into the picture.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you look at mind, heart, body, spirit, but the spirit is all encompassing of everything else, right? It's like the umbrella over all of it. And I think that that's when we include God as a part of our healing journey. There's so much more that he can do.
Yeah.
When we bring him into the middle of anything, right? It's transformational. So of course we need him as part of our healing.
Yeah. And I found that because I do think, I think you kind of even mentioned it. Sometimes we kind of even can resist that, but something with incorporating God with that, I don't know. I think it helps that resistance more because you get more to that place of wanting to surrender.
Yeah. In the book, The Heart of Yoga, the author states, the first step of our yoga practice is to consciously link breath and body. The recommendation of regular yoga practice allows the principle that though practiced, we can learn to stay present in every moment and thereby achieve much that we were previously incapable of. Can you walk us through some simple breathing techniques that can get us out of fight or flight mode?
Absolutely. Well, first of all, what's really cool is science shows that it only takes 3 conscious breaths to come out of that fight or flight state and into the relaxation response in the body. So only 3 conscious breaths. So there are a lot of different breathing techniques that we use in yoga, and all of them are, beneficial for a variety of different reasons. Like you can find different pranayamas, which is breath work, for different kinds of conditions. But I would say that with respect to getting out of fight or flight specifically, there's the letting go breath. And I'll do some of these with you guys. The letting go breath is where you're inhaling through the nose and exhaling out through an open mouth. What's really cool about this breathing technique is, as simple as it is, we forget to do it. Our body is designed to kind of let go, right? Just a sigh out through an open mouth. But this breathing technique rids the body of tension and stress, and also helps to move the chemicals associated with a fight or flight out of the body. So those chemicals being epinephrine, adrenaline, cortisol, it helps to move it out of the bloodstream just by simple breathing in through the nose and out through an open mouth. Pretty cool. The other thing is diaphragmatic breathing. So when we're using our diaphragm, which is a large muscle that separates our thoracic cavity from our abdominal cavity, when we use that muscle to assist with our breathing, it literally helps to bring the breath all the way down into the lower parts of our lungs. And down there, we have these little nerve ganglia, like little fingers that get stimulated. And when they get stimulated by the breath, it switches the brain from that fight or flight state into the relaxation response. So we want to be breathing in a way that is slow, rhythmic, and deep, and utilize the diaphragm as part of that. So any kind of diaphragmatic breathing will help to facilitate that. And then we use things that really are designed for anxiety and stress release, like counting our breathing, using what's called boxed breathing, where you inhale for a count of 4, hold for a count of 4, exhale for a count of 4, hold for a count of 4. Boxed breathing is one of the easiest ways to get out of that anxious state and come back to a state of calm. But really, any kind of retained breathing can be effective, or even breath counting. So do you guys want to do a little bit?
Sure.
I was doing it the whole time.
I know.
I'm falling asleep now. Sure, let's do something.
Okay. All right. So wherever you are, find your way into a comfortable seated position where your feet are not crossed. They're maybe resting on the earth, so you feel nice and grounded. Make sure your hands aren't crossed either. That helps to just make sure that the wires aren't getting crossed in the brain right to left. So that's why we don't cross anything. Sit up nice and tall so that your crown is lifting toward the ceiling and your ears are stacking maybe over your shoulders and then your shoulders over your hips. So you have nice alignment. close your eyes and then just begin to notice your natural breathing. Without changing anything, just notice. We can't change what we're not aware of. So we're going to bring awareness to the breath to notice how fast or slow we're breathing, how deep or shallow, where the breath is located. And then let's begin with some letting go breath. So drawing that breath deeply into the nose, filling all the way into our lungs, expanding and inflating in every direction. Exhale out through an open mouth like a sigh. Release the jaw at the same time. Relax that jaw, Karen.
No, thanks.
Inhale deeply through the nose. Exhale out through an open mouth. Sigh of relief, a sigh of letting go. A couple more letting go breaths like this. Breathing everything out. Good. Now go ahead and take your hands and just rest them on your belly. You can take your index fingers and thumbs, maybe even form a little diamond shape and just place it over your navel point. Relax your shoulders down. And as you breathe, I want you to draw the breath in so deeply into the lungs that you feel the rib cage expand in 3 dimensions, to the front, to the sides, to the back. And maybe even in your mind's eye, you visualize that muscle that separates your heart and lungs from your abdominal cavity, pushing down like an umbrella into the abdomen so that you feel your belly expand as you breathe in. As you exhale, soften into the belly. And as the diaphragm relaxes, it'll assist the breath in leaving the body. So let go of all that breath. Continue to breathe like this for a few more times, inhaling deeply, trying to flare out even the bottom edges of our rib cage, using the diaphragm to push down so that the belly begins to push outward. And as you exhale, just soften into the belly, soften into the ribs, and feel the breath leave the body. And continue to breathe in this deep, full rhythmic way. And exhaling, letting everything go. We're going to continue like this, but we're going to add that retention now. So on the next inhale, breathe into a count of 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhale 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold at the bottom 4, 3, 2, 1. Inhale 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhale 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold 4, 3, 2, 1. Inhale 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhale 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold 4, 3, 2, 1. Now just relax. Take a nice big inhale through the nose. Exhale. Good. And then just come back to me. How do you feel now?
Oh, that was great.
I was just wondering if I could call you every night before I go to sleep.
I know. Something about taking the time to do that. I don't know why.
Yeah, and I don't know why we don't.
I know. I don't know why I don't take the time to do that more either.
It's so simple, right? And our breath is available to us all the time. So here's a kind of a cool analogy that I use a lot of times in my yoga classes. When we're breathing all the time, whether we are aware of it or not, right? And when we bring awareness to the breath, now we can really harness the full power of the breath and do these kinds of breathing techniques that enable us to come out of fight or flight, to let go of held tension and stress, to, calm the body, to calm the brain, calm the nervous system. So what's really cool is it reminds me that, God is present all the time, whether we acknowledge his presence or not. So when we think about God, God is present all the time, whether we're aware of his presence and interact and try to connect intentionally or not. It's when we become aware of God's presence, be still and know that I am God, that we can then really tap into God's power in our lives. And so God gave us the very breath that gives us life. He sustains us through the breath. The word for breath, ruach, means breath, spirit, soul, life force. And so our breath, our body is sustained by the breath. But when we bring that awareness in every single breath, we need God to show up for us, right? We need God to continue to sustain us. And we're made aware of his presence in our life. And in that way, we can harness the full power of that connection back to God. And so it can be just this really cool thing of bringing awareness to the breath is like, okay, at the same time, I'm going to bring awareness to my creator. I'm going to bring awareness to my sustainer. I'm going to bring awareness to God who gives me life and enables me to have my spirit be animated and do all the things that I'm called to do. But it's bringing awareness to it that enables us to really tap into God's power and not do things in our own strength, which will always get us kind of tripped up, but instead to do it in God's strength and power.
That was beautifully said.
Yeah. And I love that focus on the breath, how that's the first, it's the first thing we do as a human and it's the last thing we do as a human. So our breath is pretty important.
Well, and I read in like a scientific journal once that you can't breathe deeply and be in fight or flight or stress at the same time. It's impossible. But now you just showed us exactly why and explained it. So that's wonderful. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
You're welcome. And isn't it cool that God designed these bodies in such an incredible way that, just breathing alone can help us to become present, to calm down, to be able to heal, that all of that is possible just by bringing awareness to our breathing.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that God designed our bodies that way. Just profound to me.
Yeah. It's such a God thing.
Mm-hmm.
So in the book, The Prayer of Heart and Mind by Thomas Ryan, he says there are two aspects of the practice of yoga postures, the external form of the posture that works through the body and the internal form that works through the mind. We all encounter physical limitations and resistance within our bodies, and asanas become a powerful vehicle of acceptance to our present condition. This moment is a privileged opportunity to learn how to be in your body fully without struggling or coercing it to fit your mental image of yourself and your flexibility. Reaching and relaxing becomes a metaphor for accepting where you are in life. The practice of asanas is not a sporting context or competition. And I love that quote. And that's what I love about your yoga classes. Cause I know the very first yoga class I went to was at this big gym and she wasn't even really explaining it. She was, I think she was using Sanskrit for even the names of it. And so I was just kind of doing what she was doing. And I'm like, ow, like this hurts. And I just felt like I was lost. I didn't know what I was doing. I felt really out of place. And so when I started doing your yoga classes, I like how you really focus on, the foundation. It's the FAEE, foundation, alignment, engagement, and then the eyes and the gaze. And that's so important because if you're not doing it right, or if you're just looking at the instructor and just doing that, then you can hurt your body. It's so important to, tune in and to listen to your own body. So anything you want to expound on the importance of that?
Sure. Well, first of all, with that quote from Thomas Ryan, it just reminded me that we don't use the body to get into a pose. We use the pose to get into the body.
That's a good point.
So I think that what happens is that we are trying to, one of the ways that I used to get injured in yoga is that I would try to force my body into a pose. Right? Because I thought that that's what I was supposed to be doing.
Right.
But that's how I ended up injured and taking my body into places that were unsafe or, not where my body was in that moment. When we look at it from the reverse, instead we use the pose to get into the body. We allow the pose to take shape with whatever is appropriate in that moment, whatever feels good to us in that moment, whatever posture or expression of that posture is right for us. And so it's not about looking like the people on Yoga Journal magazine or keeping up with your instructor in your class. It's about turning your attention inward and getting into your body and making those connections. So when I instruct, I use a principle that I cultivated called FAEE, which, as Karen said, stands for foundation, alignment, engagement, and then eyes or gaze. So foundation is so very important because that's what's going to give us our stability in the pose. Just like life, we can't build on shifting sand, right? I mean, scripture tells us that we need a solid foundation.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of times we may be building our yoga postures on a shaky foundation. So we start with that first for stability, and then great reminders that, what are we rooting into? What are we grounding into? And here we can bring things in like, are you grounding into your faith? Are you, grounding into the stability you find in Christ, that kind of thing. So you can bring a lot of imagery into that. Alignment is how we align our bodies. And so if we aren't properly aligned, not just in terms of our spinal alignment, but just how we position our bodies in the postures can become unsafe because we're not properly aligned. And so alignment is very, very important for safety. Engagement is where we now engage the muscles of the body to hold that posture. And that's where we get the strength of our posture and also balance, because we need that engagement in order to hold the posture in a way that is going to facilitate the flow of energy through the body to help maximize the benefits of the pose, and all the wonderful benefits that we spoke about. And then our eyes, which is where we fix our gaze during our posture, also helps us to balance. We want to be staring at something off in the distance that is going to not be moving so that we can, balance our body more effectively. But also it's where do we focus our attention? So, where we focus our gaze isn't just about looking at something. It's where are we placing our energy, our focus, our attention. And so in a Christ-centered practice, that's on Jesus. Maybe the scripture that we're using, maybe, there's some other aspect of our faith that we're focusing on. But here's where it's not just about where we're looking and directing our eyes. Instead, it's where we're placing our focus. And for me, that's where it becomes that Christ-centered focus because my eyes are on Christ.
Right.
That's great.
It's all incorporated.
Yeah, I think I need to work on the engagement part. My balance is still not quite there. In the Old Testament, the Hebrew words Hagah, which meditation means to sigh or murmur, and Shia, to meditate, means to muse or rehearse. Both appear in reference to connecting with God. The practice of Christ-centered yoga provides an opportunity to meditate on God's word in a deep and intimate way. I know you just started up again in a new Christ-centered yoga class. Can you share where we can go for that and if an online option is available?
Yeah. So I teach a gentle Christ-centered yoga class on Monday nights at 6:30 p.m. Arizona time. And we do that live in person, but we also live stream that. So it's available, in either format. I also have an extensive video on demand library on Moxie, Moxie. It's a yoga and fitness platform. So I have a variety of classes available that you can take on demand available there. And we're continuing to expand other opportunities for live in-person classes. But I also want to say that, Mountain Park Church is such an incredible place to go as well. They do classes, I think 6 days a week right now, and they live stream some of them on Facebook Live. So that would be another great place if you're looking for Christ-centered yoga classes that are in person.
Yeah, and I saw they have a retreat coming up. I was thinking about doing that.
Yeah, beginning of April, they're doing a retreat. So it'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah, that sounded great. So I just finished the training part for the Soaz Release Yoga by you that I had to do. I couldn't do it, as you were doing it because I was working, but I just kind of worked through it. And now I'm working on my practice class, which I hope to get done soon so I can do it for you and get credited. So I've been doing that on the days I don't work. And like I was saying earlier, I really have noticed since I've been doing, I've been trying to, like some weeks I have like 4 or 5 days off and I'll do, a Soaz class every day. So I really am seeing the difference. I mean, I really do see a difference when I do that Soaz release. So I was just curious, what got you interested in teaching the Soaz Release Yoga?
So I was introduced to Soaz Release Yoga during my yoga therapy training. I was trained by David Berselli, who founded TRE, Trauma Releasing Exercises. and who is the founder of traumaprevention.org. He is a trauma specialist and amazing resume if you get a chance to like check him out. But I was intrigued by it. I was like, how is it that, this particular style of practice helps resolve trauma? So as a part of my training, I had to practice it daily for 30 days straight. I was blown away. I noticed results very, very quickly. And to be honest, it helped me more than years of talk therapy in terms of helping me resolve my trauma and the triggers related to my trauma.
Wow.
So,
so were you doing yoga ones or just his exercises?
Both.
Both. Okay.
Yeah, both. So, I was practicing TRE, and then I was also practicing tremoring as part of a Soaz release practice. And so I noticed these triggers that I had were like shrinking and even like gone. Like I would think about a situation or an event and, I would no longer feel that response in my body that I used to feel by recalling it, and just how it helped me be more present, to feel more calm in general. It helped my body on a physical level in terms of resolving physical traumas that I had had in my body. So I started, noticing that I had to teach it for a period of time and, obviously to get credit for my training. But I ended up using it as one of my projects for graduation. And it was unbelievable how profound the results were in my students. So it is now my favorite style of practice because of the impact that it's had on me personally and what I've witnessed in my students.
Yeah, I believe it. I mean, I'm just reading his book and now I can't get enough of it. I want to read everything. I bought a book by Peter Levine because I don't know if he gets into the Soaz as much, but he talks about, have you read any of his books?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
It's fascinating. It really is. I mean, David Berceli goes around the world and helps, communities that have had trauma. So it really is something that's fascinating.
And he's funded by the Department of Defense, and he works quite a bit with people who have PTSD, people in the military. He travels all over the world for like major traumas. He went to Sandy Hook and helped people tremor and release the trauma of Sandy Hook, for example. That happened while I was doing my training. He had to leave to go to Sandy Hook during our training and help those people navigate what they had experienced. So it's profound what this practice can accomplish.
Yeah, I just recently had a traumatic thing happen to me, and it was very, very traumatic. And what I did was went over to Karen's and did a Soaz release yoga.
Yeah, we went through a class.
I was actually okay by the next day, which is pretty much a miracle for what I had gone through. I'm not going to really talk about that, but yeah. So what would you say is the biggest benefit for doing the Soaz release yoga class? You kind of already touched on all those things, just basically the release of the trauma, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's trauma resolution and release, stress reduction. It helps to rewire the brain, like we spoke about earlier, to create, new connections. There are physical benefits in terms of countering the effects of stress and trauma on the body that we feel in the jaw, the neck, the shoulders, the low back, the hips. So it really works on every level, physical, mental, emotional, and then spiritual when we incorporate Christ and Christ-centered messaging, or just bring Christ into the practice with us in an intentional way. Now we have all of the amazing spiritual benefits that go along with that as well.
Yeah, I love it. So spiritus is a Latin word for breath. The English word spirit derives from the word. The word inspire comes from the same word, inspiritus, and means in spirit or in the soft breath. We receive inspiration via the breath through the spirit. This is what your yoga training school is named after, and I love that. Can you share about all the other things that we haven't mentioned yet? Because I know you do the teacher trainings, the retreats, mindful eating. You want to share about that?
Sure. Yeah. I offer classes, workshops, retreats. We do level 1 and 200-hour yoga teacher training, continuing education for existing teachers. We have a 300 and 500-hour master level training program. We do mindful eating, wellness coaching. I offer healing services like yoga therapy, energy healing, Thai yoga massage, private yoga, and a lot more. So that is what this company is all about. And I love that you looked at the meaning of the word Inspiritus, because that word to me encapsulates what we're about and how we facilitate what we do.
Yeah,
That's
it
awesome.
sums it up so well.
Yeah, where can we find you on social media? And if you want to give your website and address for our listeners?
Sure. So the website is inspiritusyoga.com, and literally it breaks down to inspiritusyoga.com. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. So if you go on any of those platforms, just /Inspiritus Yoga will take you to our pages. And then I'm also on Moxie, as I mentioned earlier. And if you just want to try Moxie out, you get $25 free credit to use however you wish. So if you're interested in trying Moxie out, my referral link is get.moxie.xyz/Dawn Hopkins. And that will give you that $25 free to try out some of those classes.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's so
great.
awesome. We just want to thank you so much for being on the podcast and just everything that you do. We are so grateful.
Yes,
It's helped us so much.
Thank you so much for having me. I am so proud of you ladies in terms of what you're doing with your nonprofit and the ways in which you're helping the world heal from trauma. We need more people like you. And I'm just really so glad to know you and so grateful to have been able to be on your show.
Well, thank you. I feel the
Likewise.
same.
Yeah,
I love
we're
you, Dawn.
grateful to know you too. Thank you so much.
Thanks for tuning in to Hanging On to Hope. Check out our website, hangingontohope.org. There are resources on there, and if you would like to donate or volunteer, you can do that through our website. We are a brand new nonprofit, so we appreciate any and all support. And we thank you for listening, and until next time, keep hanging on to hope. We are evidence that there is hope and healing for you, and our passion is to help you find it too. So thanks for tuning in.
Thanks for listening, everyone.